Good morning, everyone. This is Karen. I'm coming to you from the writing corner. This is actually a corner of my bedroom where I do most of my writing. You can see I've got the chair and some books for reference, notes and notebooks and pens. And down over here on this side, I've got more notebooks with notes and pens, this morning's empty coffee cup. And this is where I do a lot of my writing. I know that you're not really supposed to write where you sleep. They don't advise that, but sometimes this is the only quiet place in my house, and I can shut the door here, and that is big. So I do what you just got to do, what you can do. I'm wanted to touch base with you all this morning because I have a new release coming out this weekend. It's coming out on Sunday, July 1st. It's called Son of a Preacher Man. It's a story of Billy Ray Davenport and Lizzie Quinlan, set in the U.S. South about 1959 to about 1961. And it's a love story from a simpler time, but it's not a story without its bumps and angsty moments, because nothing's without bumps and angsty moments. The story's near and dear to me for a lot of reasons, but mostly because when I wrote this, I fell in love with these characters. Some of the minor characters too, like Richard, who's Billy Ray's friend, and the kind and wise Mrs. Gardner, and even the Reverend. To a great degree, I think I grew to love him as well. I wanted to celebrate the release by sharing with you an outtake from the story. This is a prologue from an earlier version that I removed from the published work. It didn't really forward the story, so I decided I needed to cut it. Sometimes as an author you have to do those things, and it can be kind of painful sometimes, but story first. So I did love this glimpse of the story from the vantage point of the future of about 1982. So I wanted to share that with you today. The bookend on the left, a prologue, August 1982. The late afternoon sun slanted across the trees farther inland, saying its good night to the ocean until the next morning. A little farther ahead, I spied Kevin, my youngest, leap up from his intricate sandcastle and run toward the boardwalk where his mother lounged on a blanket, her umbrella leaning toward the afternoon sun. She was the perfect portrait of a woman at leisure. I walked toward her, hands in my pockets, the softer, drier sand folding up around my feet. Kevin flopped down beside her on the blanket, digging in our beach bag. "What are you looking for?" I asked him. "Here it is." He pulled out a folded up kite and a wad of tangled string, and then thrust the whole mess out between us. "Can you help me unwind it?" I gave it a dubious look. "I don't know, son. It's awful tangled up. Besides, there's hardly any wind today. I don't think it will be a good afternoon for kite flying." He looked crestfallen, and I realized I was probably frowning at him in that stern fashion my wife often accused me of. Gathering my patience, I replied, "Well, let's just take a look, shall we? It can't hurt to try." His face brightened, and we spent the next 10 minutes detangling kite string. When we finished, he ran toward the ocean, calling, "Thanks, Dad," over his shoulder. I shook my head and turned back around, smiling at the woman now propped on her elbows, watching. "Hi, handsome. What you up to?" "Guess he'll never give up on getting that kite to fly, will he? I believe it's a lost cause, though." We watched Kevin running back and forth a few minutes, trying to get the wind to lift the kite into the air. "Maybe I should try to help him," I murmured. "You always were a soft touch for lost causes," You think so, huh? She nodded. I know so. I settled beside her and leaned over to kiss her cheek. No good cause is ever truly lost, honey, just like no person is beyond redemption. Remember how, of all Jericho, the Lord's people spared Rahab and her family. She made a choice to hide their spies, and it changed her future. And then Rahab the harlot became the great-grandmother of King David. She did. I stared out over the sea, contemplating the exciting, massive, yet frightening body of water in front of me. Because of my upbringing and my own sentimental nature, I saw symbols everywhere, in everything. Now I saw the sea as a symbol of life. Not an original comparison, perhaps, but a valid one. These days, as I approached middle age, my life was sometimes intense, like brutal, bright sunlight reflecting off the surface of the water. With all the challenges this stage of life entailed, I frequently found myself on the hot seat, raising teenagers, working harder at my job than I ever had, and all the while wondering whether the sunset years on my life's ocean would bring storms or calm. Without thinking, I reached over and clasped my wife's hand for reassurance. I had navigated this earthly life pretty well, I thought, but like Rahab, I never could have predicted the twists and turns God had in store. Some events that shaped my life were obvious: my mother's death, going away to school, the births of my children. But sometimes, little events that had far-reaching effects crept up on me unexpectedly, like the tide easing higher on the sand.